What's going on, y'all? So last week we went ahead and we did a video game top 10. And I thought, well, this is a channel that's going to be dedicated to video games and anime, at least for the time being. So I probably should do an anime top 10 as well. Now, like last week, this is my top 10, not necessarily everybody's top 10, or just a general best anime of all time, because honestly that list would look a lot different. Now, this was not an easy list for me to come up with. When I sat down to do it, I wrote down 24 different anime, and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta break that down to a top 10. And all 24 of them I really love. So chances are, if you don't see the anime that you like in this top 10, it was probably in the 14 that got left on the chopping block. Again, that doesn't mean they're bad anime. It doesn't mean that I don't love them. I just had to make it into a top 10. But just like last time, we're going to have some rules. This is going to be anime only. I'm not going to go into the manga because some series are a lot better in the manga than they are in the anime, and vice versa. It will be series only, so no movies. Don't expect to see Akira or Tokyo Godfathers on here. They're just not going to be. And again, no honorable mentions. I don't like honorable mentions, and like I said before, I think they're a cop-out. Number 10, One Piece. So the One Piece story starts with a pirate crew from the East Blue as they work their way through the Grand Line. This has obviously caught the attention of a lot of people in the world, as their manga is the second best comic book style writing ever done. It's only behind Superman in sales. And it is number one clearly in the manga space. All these volumes of the manga have made over 1,000 anime episodes. That's a lot. So with that being said, I'm not recommending that anybody, just because I put it in my top 10, goes out and starts watching this if you're not watching it already. It's a hell of a commitment. Recently, my wife decided that she wanted to walk the plank and dive into One Piece, and we started all over again rewatching it. And I noticed while rewatching it that some of the quirkiness that I found hard to get through early on, I love. I kind of missed some of it. It was nostalgic and honestly kind of funny. But truthfully, I never really thought of One Piece as one of my top 10 anime until I really sat down to make this video and thought it out. The amount of time that I've put into this says it all. I mean, I've watched probably almost 2,000 episodes of this show, and that's insane. I can't think of another show I've watched that many episodes of. Even the fillers I don't think are bad. While they're not canon, they do fit what the pirates would do, and a lot of them kind of gives you a little bit of backstory there. And some of them are just awesome. Like there's this one Chopper Man episode, a filler, granted, but it has Murder Grandpa in it. Minoru Suzuki. Now, if you don't know who Minoru Suzuki is, he's a shoot fighter and a wrestler, much like Brock Lesnar or Ken Shamrock is in the United States. Just to see him in there was kind of hilarious, and if you wanted to see him in real life, you can catch him still in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and in the United States, he occasionally pops up in All Elite Wrestling. One Piece is a wild and long ride, and worth the time if you're really willing to give it. Don't dive into this and think, oh, I'll just quickly catch up. It's not going to be like that. You're looking at about a year at least just to catch up on the anime that's out there. So if you aren't willing to commit that, don't do it. Number 9, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Admittedly, I'm a bit of a JoJo stan. I'll take that, I'll live with it. But this anime has something for everybody. Whether you're into like old school vampire tales, you like battle anime, travel, slice of life, a mafia story, or even a prison story, this has it for you. These are broken down into parts. And if I were to rank the parts in the order that I enjoy them, Golden Wind would be number 1, then Battle Tendency, then Stone Ocean, then Stardust Crusaders, then Phantom Blood, and finally Diamond is Unbreakable. That was the slice of life one, and it really wasn't my favorite, but I know a lot of people who think that that's the best one, so it's kind of a me thing. There's also 2 other ones, but they haven't been released yet into the anime, so we won't be talking about them today. The art is original. I mean, when you see JoJo art, you know that it's JoJo. Other anime have even switched to that art style here and there, kind of as an homage and a head nod to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The opening theme songs are catchy as hell. They will get stuck in your head. And the ending theme songs, they're Western known hits for the most part, with the likes of Jodeci and Savage Garden adding to it. And the memes. Look, JoJo memes are everywhere. There's, at this point, no way to avoid that. You're just going to see them. Or hear them. Yes, even some of the songs have become memes in their own. Whether you're flipping through Twitter or you're on Facebook, you're going to see a JoJo meme once in a while. At one time, people said all memes are JoJo memes. Number 8, Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. This is by far the oldest anime on my list. And because of that, the art really doesn't hold up, but the story does. We have 5 main protagonists that are sent to Earth from the space colonies to foment unrest and try to overthrow a shadow organization that is trying to control everything. Our main protagonists, they couldn't be more different than each other. Every person who watches this and enjoys it, they have a different protagonist that they like more than the rest. And there's a ton of political intrigue in this. The story just lends itself perfectly to it. And our main protagonists find themselves in spots where they don't know if they're on the right side of history or not. That can be fully understanding to somebody even in the modern era. And the giant mechs that we call Gundams, they're iconic at this point. We all know what a Gundam is when we see a Gundam, and we've probably all heard the scream, "It's a Gundam." This isn't a light watch. Like I said, with all the political intrigue, a lot more of the dialogue is what actually matters as far as what you listen to than the fight scenes. While the fight scenes, some of them are very good, that's not the reason to watch this. The main reason is really to see which way the political winds are blowing. You'll see good guys become bad guys. You'll see allies from people who are just fighting with each other, because that's kind of the way that politics works out a lot of times. As an older anime, I can't recommend that you watch this, but I can't say that you shouldn't watch this. If you're into political anime, this is kind of the best one from the old school, and I think maybe you should give it a try. Number 7, Trigun. The humanoid typhoon. The 60 billion double dollar man. Vash the Stampede. A man feared far and wide. A man that is goofy as all get out. He loves people, but they hate him. He's lonely and goes overtime to try and get people to like him. He usually fails once they realize actually who he is. Ultimately, that's what this story is about. Loneliness. And a need to keep people at arm's length to keep them safe. And that only increases the loneliness and suffering that one endures. As silly as Vash is, he manages to get serious when he needs to. And serious Vash, he's a badass. Perfect shot with his weapon, and I mean perfect. And he can fire stones by flicking them with his fingers to redirect others' bullets. You're not going to win a battle with him. So who in hell would try to go against him? Legato and the Gung Ho Guns. The Guns are a strange, eclectic group of baddies, and all are individuals, but they follow one man out of fear, even though they don't really get along with each other most of the time. Their leader, Legato, is pure evil. There's no gray area with him. That said, he's one of the coolest villains in any anime. He wants to make Vash kill people, something Vash tries with all he has not to do. Even his enemies, he just refuses to kill them. You find out later that someone is issuing orders to Legato, but that doesn't make him any less cool. The art comes at the end of the handwritten era, and because of that, there's a beauty to it that just isn't replicated nowadays. That doesn't make the art style bad or anything. It is a different style than what we see in today's anime, and it's beautiful in its own way. It's something that many of us who grew up watching this stuff years ago, we miss and would like to see an anime once in a while jump in and try to do things this way. Number 6, Vinland Saga. Now, I've already done a video on this, and if you haven't seen it, it's called, Is This the Best Anime of Recent Years? And I suggest that you go back and take a look at that. Vinland Saga is a Vikings-era saga. It's not your typical coming-to-you anime story that you're used to seeing. There's a ton of violence in this and a lot of killing, but moments of compassion. And for as much as this is a violent anime, it's as much a psychological thriller as anything else. It follows the life of a young child named Thorfinn who goes through some shit, to say it lightly. He leaves with his dad on a quest to join a war, even though he wasn't invited, and then ends up being captured and growing up with his captors. It's not an easy life for Thorfinn, but he does manage to find what he's looking for, even if he doesn't get it the way he wants it. He's forced multiple times to shut himself off from the outside world, and basically shut himself off from his own feelings. It's the only way he can get by day to day. Now, I've said before, that if you haven't watched this, you need to watch this. I truly do believe this is the best anime to come out in the last 10 years. It just has so many elements of a great story, let alone a great anime. There are over-the-top characters, amazing fight scenes, and moments that will just stick with you. They put a sense of dread into the eyes of some of these characters at times, and you can almost feel what they're feeling. This is not an easy watch by any stretch of the imagination, but it is very worthwhile. Number 6, Hellsing Ultimate. Okay, this is murder porn, but in the most glorious of ways. I mean, one of the groups that get killed in this is a certain group from World War II Germany. Look, I don't want to get striked before I even get monetized. That just makes no sense. You know what I'm talking about. The main character is a character named Alucard. Yes, it's Dracula spelled backwards. And he's very witty, but deadly. And he enjoys battle. Oh my god, the amount of blood that's on the screen during these episodes is absurd. It only really rivals with like Berserk as far as pure bloodshed. Alucard himself, he's kind of a slave to a British Hellsing organization that took him captive years ago, and when the new leader of the Hellsing organization gives Alucard blood, he's kind of indebted to her for good. The Hellsing organization, their whole job is to kill the things that bump in the night, and Alucard is very good at that. So they send him off to do that. Now, he does get sidetracked to where he's not just killing things that bump in the night, but he also gets into a fight with the Vatican and that aforementioned German World War II group. Visually, though, this anime is amazing. The fight scenes, when you're watching them, they're just beautiful. The art style itself, it's gorgeous. I really enjoy what I see when I watch Hellsing. Even if it can be sophomoric and the plot line isn't really deep, it doesn't really take away from what this anime brings. Number 4, Ghost in the Shell, a standalone complex. This cyber police drama takes place in an era when most humans have received cybernetic implants and some even have full prosthetic bodies. This takes place in the year 2030. Yeah, we have a long way to go to catch up to them. The main character, Modoko Kusanagi, she's in charge of Public Security Section 9, who has been tasked with dealing with cyber criminals. There's plenty of hacking and corporate terrorism to go around in this, and they use a story called The Laughing Man as a basis for the main corporate crimes that are going on. Ghost in the Shell, in all of its forms, does a really good job of asking you, what exactly does it mean to be a human being? Is it having a beating heart? Well, that would mean that some of these people aren't human. Does it mean to have a brain? Well, what if your brain's being controlled by computer chips? What does it mean to be a living human being? The group inside of Public Security Section 9, they all have their own skills that they bring to the table. The Major, she leads the charge, but with backup from Bato, who is an old school war veteran with cybernetic eyes and a few other implants. He kind of brings the backbone in the fight. Others, they work from the background, doing whether it's investigation or they work on the net. Each one brings a skill to the group that the others just don't have. There's 2 gigs to this, and the first gig, which is the Laughing Man gig, is so much better than the second one, but the second one's not bad either. And the opening song for this is called Inner Universe by, I'm gonna butcher this name, Origa, Russian lady who's since deceased, but the song is just this upbeat techno song that really stays with you. It uses 3 different languages in the song. As far as police dramas go, this is one of the better ones. I don't care what era you go to in the anime world. Now, you heard the title of this, and you may actually be wondering, what is a standalone complex? Well, a standalone complex is basically when a bunch of people, without anybody telling them to, starts to act, whether for good or bad, in the same manner following a particular incident. A recent standalone complex happened in the United States when, after the death of George Floyd, people went out into the streets. They didn't need people to tell them to go to the streets. They just saw something they didn't like and they decided to protest. Now, of course, this got co-opted by the media, by politicians, and by groups, but initially there was a standalone complex going on. Now, with this in mind, you can see why it would be tough for a police group to narrow down and arrest people for committing crimes if the crimes are being committed as a standalone complex. You can't bring like a RICO case against somebody because there's really no leader in it. And that's part of what makes this anime so interesting. Number 3, Code Geass. Lelouch V. Britannia is an exiled prince who lives in Japan with his sister. He's still a boy, but Lelouch has a power of Geass. And his particular power of Geass gives him absolute obedience. over anybody that he entraps into it. Basically, if he tells you to put a gun to your head and pull the trigger, you're going to do it. With this ability, he uses it to fight back against the Britannian Empire, who are slowly making incursions into the Japanese state. The problem is, with his Geass, he uses it to basically make human beings into pawns in his strange little war game. He may have a better world in mind for him in the end, but the means that he uses to get there may not always suit or be correct. Now, this takes place in a dystopian future of sorts on a different timeline, so there's giant mechs, because anime, I don't know. But the mechs actually play out well, and the mech battles are done well. The art style's pretty solid, and to be honest, the story is absurdly good. With the deep political intrigue and everything else that goes into this, you really begin to get a feel for what he's thinking and what the others are thinking. And the ending to this anime is so satisfying. It may just be the best ending to any anime ever. That's not hyperbole. I legitimately mean that. It is so satisfying. Now, they've put out a movie since the end of Geass, and it kind of was supposed to tie up some loose ends, but I think it was better without it. I think those loose ends really left things to your imagination and really helped you feel the depth of what he did to end the story. Number 2, Death Note. Imagine, if you would, that you're walking down the street and a notebook falls out of the sky. You pick it up and realize, oh, this notebook has an ability attached to it to where if I write someone's name in it and I picture them while I'm writing their name, they will die. How would you use it? Would you use it to try and make the world a better place? Would you use it to try and make the world worse? Or would you act as a dictator and just use it however you please? This is the situation that Light Yagami, the main character of Death Note, finds himself in. Once he picks up the Death Note, he realizes that there's a monster attached to it. A Shinigami, which is just a death collector, death lord. It's basically a Grim Reaper. He realizes, oh, that's how Grim Reapers take lives. Now, Light starts off using this to kill wicked criminals, and to be honest, it's actually kind of admirable. But like any power, once you have it, you're going to abuse it, and Light ends up abusing it a little bit. People come after him. One in particular is L, and when L comes after him, it's a tough catch. This is not something that police can really nail down easily, so there's a lot of intellectual combat within this series that it's a tit for tat back and forth that really makes you think. And of course, all they do is think. There's scheme after scheme to try and get out of it and try to create another one. The funny thing is, L has a team that's been put together. And Light's dad, being a police officer, is the head of said team. This puts Light into a weird situation, but at the same time into an advantage situation. Because he gets to sit there, for the most part, and be with this group. He's an excellent student, and initially no one has any reason to believe that he's the one who is creating these crimes. That he is the one known as Kira. And the entire time, he believes he is making a better world. He's getting justice for people who aren't going to be able to get justice on their own. It's a tough spot to be in, and honestly, he comes off as the protagonist early on, and before you know it, he becomes the antagonist pretty easily. This is a great anime, worth every minute of watch time that you can possibly put in it, and the opening theme song, it's another one of those catchy ones. Number 1, Cowboy Bebop. Probably not a huge surprise here. It is pretty mainstream, and a lot of people really like Cowboy Bebop. To me, it's just the best anime I've ever seen. Its futuristic sci-fi noir style is just different than most anime that you see. The group of Spike, Ein, Ed, Faye, and Jet, they just come off as so believable, when a lot of other animes, they're just not. The weird thing about this is, even though it takes place way into the future, it kind of takes place a couple hundred years in the past as well. They use a lot of technology that just doesn't seem like it would still be around when you're flying through the cosmos. But that makes all these characters a little bit more believable. Spike, he has this horrible, tragic backstory. Jet, he's just an old cop who lost his job and now he's out bounty hunting with Spike. Faye, she's another one with a bad backstory. Ein, that's a dog. And Ed, well, he's this crazy hacker who can find things that they may need help with. Cowboy Bebop's art style, it's a little bit old school, but it's just beautiful. And to be honest, the storytelling is good as well. It's quirky at times, which doesn't take itself too seriously, which is a good thing. Now, I don't want it to be too quirky. If you saw the recent Netflix series of Cowboy Bebop, now look, I'm one of the strange people who actually didn't hate it. I thought it was okay. They did add a little bit too much quirkiness to it and not enough of the serious tones. If they had more serious tones, I think there'd be a lot less backlash for it and we might still be able to watch it. Thing is, at the end of the day, most anime live action adaptations are terrible, so I don't grade it that bad. I actually think they did okay. The anime, though, is amazing. Look, you have done a disservice to yourself if you like anime and you've never sat down and watched this. This is just one of those insanely great stories. Now, if you've made it to this point in the video, first off, thank you. I really appreciate you giving me the time and listening to me for the last 20-some minutes. Now, if you would, could you please hit that like button and consider subscribing? Also, go down into the comment section and let me know what your favorite anime is of all time, or even your top 10. Or heck, if you want a video game or anime to be reviewed by me, please go ahead and drop that down there as well, and I will consider it. And since I'm a young channel, the YouTube algorithm could really care less about me. So if for some reason you could share this, I would be indebted to you. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again in a week.